Hello, hello, friends. Welcome to the Great Debate. Tina and I have a lot of opinions on a lot of different things, and this segment is going to represent that. And you all will get to join in on the fun and frivolity of it all. This is a segment we're calling The Great Debate. All right, Tina, so are you ready to have our first debate topic? Are you ready to get into it?
I think so. All
right.
I could take
you. Ready to bring your facts and your notes and your research?
I do have my notes.
Do you? Your little notes? Okay.
I wrote notes.
Today's topic is Marvel. Did Marvel Studios kill Hollywood? That's the question. Did Marvel Studios kill Hollywood? And before we get into it, I would just like to say the following statement. As of July 2024, there are 34 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The MCU is the largest franchise in history and has earned over $29 billion worldwide. The first Marvel movie was Iron Man in 2008. So between 2008 and 2024, they have released 34 movies with, I believe, another 11 or 13 in the pipelines coming down the works. Tina, your thoughts on Marvel?
Did Marvel ruin Hollywood?
Did Marvel kill Hollywood? Did it kill it? You know, that basically means 2 Marvel films a year since they've started in 2008. That's kind of what that works out to.
Right.
And that means let's just say it's $30 billion in 14 years? Is that the math there? Something like that?
Yeah.
That's insane. It
is insane. I agree. But to answer the question, did Marvel kill Hollywood? No. What's the next question?
Lies.
Lies. So here's the thing.
Tell me why you think they did.
Okay, so I did actually learn some stuff while I was doing my research. I didn't really know, and some of this is going to be, I'm sure you already know this, but for some people they may know or they may not. But I didn't understand the difference between like domestic, national, or domestic and then worldwide, national, whatever. International, there you go. Domestic, international, worldwide. So domestic box office represents the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and Guam. I don't know why when I think domestic, I thought, it was just the United States because that's just what I thought. So I was wrong.
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense. That's the term we use it mostly when we say domestic. We mean our own country.
We mean our own country, right? So that's why I was surprised at how big that area was.
Sure.
I do actually have some dollar figures actually up on my other screen if we want to get into it. But I think so. Here's the thing. In the last 10 years, domestic ticket sales have dropped against streaming services, right?
Yes.
So our actors aren't necessarily out of work. But if we're talking about box office, we're talking about those are the numbers when they make a movie. Those are the numbers they go by, right? How much did we gross domestically? How much did we gross internationally, et cetera, et cetera?
That's how they determine success or failure. Right. Yes, by the box office.
So, I mean, Netflix subscriptions in that same time period in the last 10 years, well, not the last 10 years, but let's say from 2011 to 2020. In 2011, Netflix subscriptions were at 21.5 million. 2020, they were 203 million.
Incredibly.
People subscribing.
Wow.
Which, I get that it's a great platform. People are, get right to your home and all of those things. But I think what Marvel did was bring people back out to the movies, because in that same time frame, the box office went from 2011 to 2020 is what I'm talking about. In that same time frame, box office gross went from about 10 billion to about 2 billion. I mean, it dropped significantly. People just weren't going to the movies anymore. They were staying, some people were, but they were staying home. They were watching it streaming. I mean, I'm going to say I was guilty of this as well, because why would I spend $20 a pop going to the movies, or $15 a pop, whatever it costs now, plus snacks, plus everything else? It's $100 to get my family into the movies if we do that, right? Yeah. Or I could stay home and we could pop our own popcorn and have our own snacks and be able to pause.
And watch it 3 weeks later.
Yeah. So I think that Marvel movies, regardless of the artistry, regardless of how you feel about the quality of the storytelling or whatever that is, I think they really brought back people to the theater, because there is something about seeing a movie like that with a lot of fanfare in the theater. I also looked up the top 10 domestic grossing films of all time. I'm not going to
Hmm.
read them all to you, but number 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8, all Marvel
Of
movies.
course. Yeah, they are unstoppable juggernauts.
Yeah.
Absolutely not, no contest with that.
Right.
Not a question about that. 100%.
Yeah.
Um there's no doubt. There's no doubt that Marvel has done something and achieved something that no one ever has achieved before, and they changed the game in Hollywood. I don't dispute the box office draw. I think movies were dying because of streaming services, and then the pandemic was the final death knell in the whole concept. And we see that in Hollywood across the board, how it's changing, how things are working because of streaming services and everything else. So Hollywood is in itself changing.
Of course.
But in the past 14 years or 2008 to 2024, um, Hollywood has been dominated by Marvel. And because Marvel films have been so successful and because they are such money making juggernauts, that is all Hollywood wants to produce. And this is the problem when I say Marvel has killed Hollywood. At one point in time, when we were growing up, there was the opportunity for a thing called a sleeper hit or a small film that would get produced that would then turn into a big summer hit, or small films that would just do well and go away. They didn't make hundreds of millions of dollars and it was okay.
Yeah.
These stories we have lost. And that's why I believe Marvel killed Hollywood. We have lost the originality of Hollywood. We have lost the originality of storytelling because Marvel not only proved that comic books could be bankable, but that pre-written material, established material, source material was the way to go. You know, that if there was an audience for a comic book or a book, then that audience would automatically be there for the film. And they've proven that to be pretty much true over and over and over again. And because of that, Hollywood will no longer take the risk on a film that could blow the world away, you know, that could change people's minds. There have been great films in the past that I don't think would ever get made today, you know? So when I say Marvel killed Hollywood, I am not a fan of what Marvel has done to Hollywood, but I certainly recognize the brilliance in the special effects, the artistry, the filmmaking, all of the things that they have done. They have certainly advanced the art form and advanced the technology, but I feel it has done so at the expense of what we used to call Hollywood, what we used to call, creativity, ingenuity, these new ideas, Goonies, E.T., these great moments of our childhood. I'm not sure would be made today because they aren't attached to the Marvel universe, and I think that's sad.
So I
I
have a
think.
counterpoint to
What do you
that
think?
because
Okay,
I don't think any of that went away. I really don't. I think it has all transitioned. I think
to streaming
TV,
services,
but
yes, I
television,
would.
and
Yeah,
I think television is so much better today for
I agree,
that. It
100%.
gives you the ability to do true justice to a story, right? Especially if it's from a work of art that's like a book or something written, because you can do a series, you can even do a
Right.
limited series. You
Sure.
can really express that more true, I think, in a more true artistic way than having to cram it in and trying to package it for the masses, because I think that's where Marvel has gotten it. Yes, they package it for the masses, and the masses eat it up like candy. And the problem is Hollywood is nothing if not about making money. I mean, regardless of what it
100%.
started at,
Absolutely.
and
No, you're right.
they're gonna do what makes money, and
That's why it's
so
called show business. It's show business.
exactly, yeah. And
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and do I think that other movies don't get made because of it? Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's true, because I think if
Mhm.
I'm a movie executive and I have this brilliant new director who's up and coming and he's had promising short form films or whatever, and then I have the opportunity to back a Marvel movie, well, I'm going to go make a couple $1 billion. You know
Right.
what I mean? And I'm not
Right.
going to feel bad about it. And I know that's what happens. And so I just think that the streaming services, whether people want to be on TV or on the silver screen, however they look at it, but I think
Sure.
TV has come so far. And
So I would
yeah,
agree with you 100%. In fact, the shift to television being in a new golden age and the content that's being created is remarkable.
yeah,
And the A list celebrities that would have never been on the small screen
yeah,
10 years ago
right.
are lining up for television work right now. So you're absolutely right. That is a definite change in Hollywood. And I'm thankful for that, because I agree with you. What it's not being made for films now can also be made for television.
Hmm.
But there are still stories that I think that are wonderful film stories, that are short 2-hour stories that can be told in film that just won't get made.
Yeah.
And that bothers me when Iron Man has 8 13 appearances, and I read that what's her name, who was Iron Man's number two, Gwyneth Paltrow,
Hmm.
didn't realize that she was in an entire film. Like, she didn't realize she was in Avengers Endgame or whatever, because she had done so many
Oh,
appearances,
yeah.
and she couldn't keep them straight. And so, and then there's this intense need to follow the dogma and the canon of Marvel, and this meant this, and then this universe was rebooted for this, and I'm like, give me a mother freaking
That's no
break,
different than
please.
Star Wars or Star Trek.
It is only in that Star Wars was a single franchise, one film every couple of years. Marvel is this
No, but I'm talking about the
juggernaut.
dogma and the having
Yes.
to
Oh,
stick
for
to
sure.
canon, and yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But again, if you're watching, you know, 2 or 3 Marvel films a year continuously, I don't know. To me, it's a lot. That it's repetitive. It's generic. It's all the things that I don't like about art that's made for the masses,
Yeah.
right? But I get it. I totally get it. I enjoy them. I watched Doctor Strange is one of my favorites. Ant-Man and Wolverine was a hysterical film. I have a great time with some of them. Um, my husband, just like you, what couldn't care less. Star Trek, Marvel, he's happy. Or excuse me, Star Wars and Marvel, he's happy for the rest of his life. Star Trek, he'll take or leave. But Star Wars and Marvel, he's good. And now
Yeah.
Dune, I'm like, oh, good. There's gonna be 16 episodes or 16 films of Dune now. Wonderful.
I've never seen it. So
Yeah. So anyways, that's my little thoughts on Marvel.
yeah.
I don't know. I
I think
hear
the
what you're
landscape is
saying.
I think the landscape is definitely changing. Does Hollywood make films like they did 20, 25 years ago, even 15 years ago? No.
No.
Yeah, they don't. But it's just a shifting landscape. I think those stories can still be told. I think those stories actually reach a wider audience when they're on Netflix. Not everybody can afford to go to the movie theater.
True. True.
It's because it's kind of, it's almost like a status thing, right? Because it's so
Mm,
expensive to go.
it is. It is.
And
And I am reminded that a lot of this is generational, right?
it's
I
true.
feel like I'm
Yes.
I'm speaking about, like, I'm a boomer going, I used to buy a candy bar for a quarter, or whatever
Right.
our grandparents used
I
to tell
got
us
to
all the
two
time.
shiny nickels rubbing together. Got me some. Yeah, I get it.
No, exactly. I mean, and you were walking uphill both ways in the snow. I get it. I know
Exactly.
all that stuff, right? But uh, I came across an Upworthy.com article that made the news, made the circulations this week. That I found was really interesting, and it was about a Gen X parent who made his Gen Z kids watch one of our favorite movies, Dead Poet Society,
Oh,
and the reaction that Gen Z had to Dead Poet Society, he was shocked by. He was not prepared for his kids. And are you know Dead Poet Society,
of
right? Are you
course.
familiar with? Yeah,
Yes, I
right.
saw it in the
Great,
theater.
great movie. Yeah, I know, right? Loved it.
Hmm.
Um, the general takeaway from this article was simply that Gen Z does not like. They found one of the characters he doesn't know how to treat women, so he's a little too aggressive with girls,
Hmm.
and we looked at it as aggressive but forgivable because he's awkward.
Hmm.
They now look at it as problematic and someone who would be dangerous,
Hmm.
and they see that character in a completely different form,
Of
which
course.
I accept that.
Yeah.
They were blindsided emotionally by the sudden suicide of the character at the end of Dead Poet Society,
Right.
as were we. We are all blindsided by it. They do not like it. They did not like it. They called it emotional trauma, and that they felt like it was put upon them. They did not like that experience. And then also said they did not like the fact that the institution didn't change. The whole movie happened. All of these lives were affected, and the school didn't change. And I found that to be the most fascinating, because we grew up thinking it was about us. We made the change. The boys in that story made the change. The
Yeah.
teacher made the change, but the school stayed the same because that was the environment we were living in at the time, and
Yeah.
that's what fascinating article. And when the father pushed the kids, they all agreed it's a great film. They loved the film, but they had problems with it, and
Yeah.
I found that fascinating. And so when I say, how did Marvel kill Hollywood, and then the millennials and Gen Z are like, go to bed, grandpa, it's time for us to watch the TV, like
Right.
it. I get it. I miss what Hollywood was for us, and I hope someday we get a little bit of that flavor back again. That's
Yeah,
all.
and I agree. And I think that, we generationally we're all brought up differently. We all have different life experiences.
Sure.
Regardless of how you personally feel, every generation thinks they're tougher than the one that came after them, right? And I think in
Right.
some ways we probably are, but in some ways we're also not as good as the generation coming up behind us, because they're more um and this is my personal opinion, but like I think the younger people are more, they don't struggle with their sexuality. They don't struggle with things that should already be like, they're like, we're living in 2024, like why are we still even having these conversations? And
Right.
where when we were a kid, things like, like sexuality, people struggled through that. It was like, oh my God, I don't
Yeah.
know if I could tell people, because you
Yep.
legitimately could be thrown out of your home and be homeless. Not that
Mm-hmm.
can't happen today, but I just think,
Right.
so I think there's certain things that, so for us, the movie The Dead Poet Society and that suicide and that guy, I think those are people that we knew people like that, and we could understand. I believe the character was struggling with his sexuality. Wasn't that part of the
Yes.
problem?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes, it was.
And so
Mm-hmm.
he was struggling with the sexuality, and so I think we could identify a little bit more with the turmoil. And I think maybe the younger people are like, why is it such a big deal? Like younger
Right.
people now. And so for them
Certainly.
to watch that and go, oh my God, he killed himself, like I
Yeah.
could see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just,
It's
it's
just
unfortunate.
incredible to
That's an
me.
interesting article though. You need to forward that to me. I want to read it.
I will. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting how art is viewed differently through the generations. And
Yeah.
of course it is. Of course it is. Everything is viewed
We all
differently
have
through the
different life
generations, right?
experience. Yeah, of course.
Of course, but when I start looking at why is Hollywood the way it is, Hollywood is always, RuPaul famously says Hollywood is just an idea. It's not a place; it's an idea,
Hmm.
and it's true. And it's an idea that changes with the audience. That's its job,
Right.
right? That's literally what it's supposed to do, and that is what it has done. Marvel dictates that they are the ones to get the attention now, and that's great. I just hope it doesn't last much more than 20 years. I hope we're reaching the end
Well,
of the Marvel
yeah, and
universe
I think we
because
will.
it's
Something
time.
else will
It's
come.
time.
Something else will come along, and then
I
it'll
mean, they had
be.
to stop making comic books at some point, didn't they? I mean, they have run out of storylines somewhere. I hope. I hope. I don't know.
I was never a big
Unless
comic
they're
book
gonna.
reader, and I love those movies. But I always like the. I'm a big. I like the adventure type. Lots of flashbang, lots of special effects. I've always loved movies like that.
I do too. I love a big summer blockbuster, but the
Yeah,
reason I love them so much is because they're not always there.
yeah.
They weren't always there. They used to be come out in the summer. That's why they were called a summer blockbuster. And now they're like
We're,
Academy Award nominated Marvel film at Christmas time. It's just
yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot, but it is what it
fast as they
is.
can
I
pump
get it.
them out.
That's right. And until they put me in a Marvel film, I just will not accept it.
Understood. I think
Don't
that's
you think
reasonable.
it's a topic I enjoy, and I like that we can get a little bit more real with our silliness on this podcast. So, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you support Marvel? Is Marvel the devil? Those are the only two options. Let us know your
Wow.
thoughts, and get back to us. We'll talk to you again soon in the next segment.